Hello, everyone. Thank you for dialing in to this session, Decarbonizing the Grid panel. I'm Yayoi Sekine. I'm with the Decentralized Energy Group at BNEF, BloombergNEF. I'm excited to introduce our panelists today, who are Julian Deschâtelets, who is Managing Director at Brookfield Renewable, one of the largest publicly traded renewable power platforms with more than 20 gigawatts of generating capacity, as well as Mathieu LePage, who is Chief Financial Officer at Énergir, a natural gas distributor with a big footprint in Quebec and the US, with more than 520 customers across the different geographies. The big topic for today is the fact that at the back of the pandemic, we are looking very much at how to reconstruct the economy, thinking about decarbonization. There's a lot of companies making huge commitments towards that. Likewise, in the context of Brookfield and Énergir, which we'll be hearing about today, and there's also a lot of pressure from investors into looking at decarbonization as well. So with that, I will already jump into the questions, and probably starting with you there, Julian. So Brookfield Renewable has a massive portfolio. I mentioned the kind of 20 gigawatt generating capacity. You manage $59 billion of assets under your management. It's almost like 6,000 power generating facilities across hydro, wind, and solar. So I think for the audience, it would be great to hear a little bit about how your organization is approaching the opportunity and challenge of grid decarbonization. And is there a lesson to the industry that the industry could learn from what you've done so far?
Thanks for the introduction and great question. If I step back, decarbonization is progressing extremely rapidly. In the past 18 months alone, I'm sure you've seen the stats, but the number of countries that have signed up to net zero is now over 130. That represents 75% of global GHG emissions. And the number of corporates that are signing up is also equally impressive at over 3,000 and increasing, it seems, weekly. So we very much at Brookfield Renewable believe that this will create one of the greatest commercial opportunities in our time. It will require $150 trillion of capital over the next 3 decades to achieve these targets. Investment in renewable power alone is expected to increase tenfold over this period. At Brookfield Renewable, we believe we're very well positioned to capitalize on this opportunity. We have the scale, as you've mentioned. We, as you've said, own and operate one of the largest fleets globally at 20 gigawatts of operating assets. We also have a very large development pipeline at over 31 gigawatts. We operate across a number of different asset classes, right? We are in hydro, we're in wind, we're in solar, we're in energy transition, and we operate across 5 continents. That's first, the scale. The second, we have deep operating expertise. We have over 3,000 employees, skilled operators, developers, and power marketing professionals that give us tremendous depth and operational expertise, which many of the corporates in particular will be that they need to get to their net zero targets. And finally, we have a leading industry balance sheet that allows us the comfort and the confidence that we will be able to access cost-effective capital to fund all of this growth.
Yeah, scale and operational expertise. I mean, being in the business with such a big portfolio, it seems like there definitely is an advantage to like expanding that portfolio and into new areas also that you've mentioned. I would like to go on to you, Mathieu, to get some perspective also from, and you're here just from the perspective of a natural gas distribution operator, as well as the fact that you have operations on the electric power distribution grid as well in the US. You do service, as I said, 520,000 customers across Quebec and the US, and being the largest gas distribution company in Quebec, I'm sure there is a specific position in which it's challenging for you to meet also these decarbonization targets. The audience, I mean, the same question to you, like how are you approaching the decarbonization challenge, and what can the industry learn from you?
A great question, and thanks for having us on this panel. It's very appreciated. So at Énergir, we believe that the cleanest form of energy that is the energy that's not consumed, basically. So, and that's why over the last 20 years, we've been investing in more than 130,000 energy efficiency projects for our customers in Quebec, which have led to more than 1 million tons of avoided CO2 equivalent emissions. With that said, we need to address now the intensity of the energy that is consumed, and it's why over the past year, Énergir has developed a corporate vision for 2030 and 2050 that will enable it to decarbonize its networks. The vision is on 4 main orientations. Continue to invest in our energy efficiency projects. That's the first and foremost things we have to do. Actively participating in the race for renewable natural gas. Everyone is looking for it. We have to get it. We have a target of having it represent a minimum of 10% of our annual volumes we distribute by 2030. So we need to find renewable natural gas. Continue to diversify Énergir activities to promote new vectors, such as green hydrogen sector. We need to look into that. And finally, to the surprise of many, I think, by developing a strong complementarity with electricity. And I think this is where Énergir believes it can stand out. We believe that we now have to think using the right energy in the right place at the right time at the lowest cost to society. What we mean by that, just as an example, we're aiming to reduce by 30% the GHG emissions from buildings we serve today by 2030, and we're aiming to be carbon neutral in this sector by 2050. How? With greater complementarity with electricity. A portion of certain usage of natural gas can be electrified economically today, while natural gas could be used during peak period, such as the cold snaps in Quebec, right? So it's reducing the footprint of the building, but using natural gas when it's economic for the customer to do so. We think that by switching heating of those buildings to electricity, we can reduce by 70% the usage of natural gas, but save an enormous amount of money for customers by using natural gas in peak periods. It's not just an idea. I've actually announced last July a partnership, a very unique partnership with Hydro-Québec to do so. It's currently in front of our regulators, and we hope this is going to be approved and put in service within the next year.
That's really interesting. And just to tease a little bit more on that on that point, so you're talking about energy efficiency and reducing gas consumption, which obviously you distribute. How do you align incentives to continue to grow your company in an environment where you're actually reducing the actual product that would have been typically incumbent to your business?
Great question. Our focus now is on creating value, not distribute volumes. The deal with Hydro-Québec is a value shift. So by keeping the peak consumption, we're generating so much value by avoiding investment in grid, in generating assets that are used very small period of time. So there's a value shift from Hydro-Québec to Énergir to compensate the loss in volume. So it's really finding where's the value and just sharing it amongst society. So it's going to be very, very little marginal rate pressure for customers because we are finding the value where it is.
Yeah, and actually that leads well to the next question that I have, and I think Julian, you can maybe give some perspective on the supply side there. But on grid decarbonization, it does require significant investment on both new generation as well as grid infrastructure. Grid infrastructure tends to be generally regulated returns as a form of an investment, while generation can be quite mixed. You can have contracted structures as well as like pretty merchant projects. Which of these is Brookfield Renewable typically focused on, and why?
Yeah, I mean, given the nature of our business, we're very much focused on building out the power generation aspect of it. And, over the past 10 years, we've built out not only a business of scale, but I think we've been very focused on building a very highly diversified business. because you don't want to be beholden to one technology or one geography. So now we have the flexibility to pursue what we would call the best risk-adjusted returns, opportunities regardless of geography, asset, or revenue profile. Right, so we have that scale, we have that confidence and that depth of expertise that allows us to be nimble in our business, in our opportunities that we pursue. If we just look at it from a credit profile perspective, right now our business is 85% contracted, 15% merchant. Right, so we are comfortable with that merchant component. We also, when you look at our geographies, 70% is across North America and Europe, but there's still 30% in Latin America, Brazil, Colombia, China, and India, as an example. And also, the other element we don't talk about too much is we have a deep portfolio of clients and creditworthy customers. We're selling to not only utilities, governments, but also corporates. And on that point, that's what maybe the next evolution as well in our business is we're seeing an increased amount of interaction and activity with large corporates that have embarked on this decarbonization journey, yet they don't have necessarily the skill set and the experience and the know-how to get to net zero. So we're very happy to partner with them and work with them on that. And recently, we signed a strategic collaboration with Amazon, for example, to develop renewable power energy projects for them, but also work together with them on additional green energy opportunities in the future. I mean, I think that's obviously a significant achievement for us. We're obviously quite pleased to be partnering with the largest corporate buyer of renewable power, and I think it'll leverage and it'll showcase our operating and development capabilities across the globe.
Yeah, that's actually quite exciting, like the movement of being even closer or in direct contact with these customers, these corporate customers who clearly have very ambitious decarbonization targets, and help move the needle pretty quickly when they come to these commitments. I guess in terms of how Énergir is thinking about it, Mathieu, on the grid decarbonization front, and maybe on the same question to you, but more focused on the regulated returns portion. You spoke a little bit about this value shift. Is this going to continue to be a bit of the strategy around the business to be more focused on the grid infrastructure bit? I know there's some activity actually in the other parts of the business, but interested to hear what your position there is.
At Énergir, we do both. We do regulated investment and a lot of it, but we do also generation too. We don't look at absolute returns. We look at returns adjusted for risk. And when you can manage both, we invest where it makes sense to do so. In Vermont, through our subsidiary Green Mountain Power, we are vertically integrated. So we do actually generation in regulated investment when it makes sense for customers to do so. If it's better for customers that we own the assets, we do. If it's better for Green Mountain Power to sign a long-term PPA with Brookfield Renewable because they give me a really good price, we will do it, right? So it's really where it suits better the customers in that sense. We saw an opportunity in the solar industry, in the C&I market. There's a niche market that we thought we could be very effective. So we made an investment through a company in the US 5 years ago. It's been very successful for us. This market is growing rapidly and we're happy to be part of it. We're not the size of Brookfield, like clearly not, but we are making a risk-adjusted return that makes sense for us in our portfolio.
Yeah, and I think besides the commercial solar business, which is quite interesting, you also own a stake in wind farms as well, right? So
yes, absolutely. Again, in Quebec, very regulated. Like if you have a 25-year PPA with Hydro-Québec, I mean that's pretty much as a regulated type of contract, right? So.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. It's good to get some perspective, actually, of this share between quite contracted revenues and regulated returns, as well as, of course, the emergence of new opportunities that might also be more merchant, as investors or companies have different risk appetites.
Clearly, Brookfield have an appetite for Brookfield an appetite for not merchant or uncontracted for a piece of it. We don't really.
Right.
So this is that where we kind of share the market.
Got it. Yeah, and I think this brings us to my next question, which is more thinking about like the investors and your relationship with the world of finance and how that's changing, and how that's influencing your decisions. You spoke specifically about your customer side, but what about on the side of the investments? What's influencing decisions? We've seen a lot of signs of in the oil and gas industry having to essentially reconsider strategies due to investor demands. So that's examples like ExxonMobil and Engine Number One, and other examples with like shale drilling becoming increasingly difficult because investors don't have as much appetite to invest in these assets. The question is like, could utilities be next, and what difference would this make?
What will be next is organizations that are not adapting to the new reality. And Énergir is. So we are adapting our business model. We are investing to decarbonize. That's what's important. Like so, I'm not worried about Énergir. Is this influencing our decisions from a finance standpoint? I don't think it is, because we have a strategy that aligns with where the world is going, and I think that's what matters. Like an organization that will embrace a change, make a difference, will find investors, either on the equity side or on the debt side. I'm not concerned about that.
I guess a similar question to you, Julian. Do you find that investor pressure, maybe that there's an upside there for you, but has this changed anything about how you think about investments and expansion, or is it just more of the same for you?
I think there's two things. I think definitely it's a lot of it's the same. Like we're beneficiary of what's going on. There's more capital coming to our sector, and so we're clearly benefiting from it. We've seen, if we just want to get quickly into capital markets before we get into investments, we're seeing a significant increase in capital. We're seeing green bond issuances, increase threefold. We're seeing ESG funds, their sort of flows of capital there are now have increased 4 times in the last, by factors of 4 in the past 18 months. We're now seeing regularly in the capital markets when a green issuance comes out, it is, at a discount to a traditional bond. We're seeing banks now coming to us and offering us, discounts tied to sustainability linked or green-based loans. So there is definitely a lot of capital coming into the renewable power industry. And as you know, we were one of the first in Canada to issue green bonds. We're one of the first corporates. We did a project bond way back in 2017. We implemented a green bond framework in 2018, and we issued our first green bond shortly thereafter. We've now issued over $4 billion worth of green securities out, and it's just expanding as well. We have a sustainability-linked loan now. We also issued green fixed for life perpetual preferred securities in the U.S. market. Just tells you that there's depth, there's a lot of capital out there. When I look at investments, and I think people have seen this, we're increasingly, we've identified an opportunity to partner with businesses like Énergir and others we're currently raising our transition fund, which will again not only be there to help with building out renewable power, but it will also be there, that capital, to be invested in businesses that are looking to transition from high carbon intensive industries to a decarbonized business. And so we're going to be there to partner with those businesses. For example, just very quickly, in the green hydrogen space, we've partnered with Gazifère. It's an Enbridge subsidiary where we're going to build an electrolyzer, supply the green power from our Lièvre hydro facilities, and then hydrogen will be taken and put into Gazifère's gas distribution network. So that's one example around transition.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's quite a lot, I feel like, to unpack, and different initiatives on your end. We're basically at time. If you have, so I'll end with just a rapid fire, which is just to say 1 or 2 words. And I'm putting you on the spot here on what do you want the audience to take away as a learning, and maybe from your experience that can help them in this journey. What word would you pick out? I'll start with you, Julian.
To me, I think the key word is to be successful. I think you need depth in your operations. You need industry expertise, and you need to diversify. Diversification is a key word for me. You can't be beholden to, again, as I mentioned, one geography or one technology. The ability to grow with this, and the industry, and certainly renewable, will need more than wind, solar. We're going to need to expand into batteries, hydrogen, and carbon capture to meet the net zero targets that everyone has set.
Right. A little more than 2 words, but we'll take that with us. Mathieu, question for you. 2 words on advice to the audience.
I'll say energy efficiency. As you can see, the light went off in my room because we have automated lights. So my word would be energy efficiency, and the second one would be adapt your business model. Make sure that you're nimble and you can adapt. The world will change, rules will change, regulation will change, and you need to be nimble to adapt for it.